Hey everybody, welcome to Analog Stick Radio, brought to you by Bit Cultures. I'm your host Mitch, and we've just hit double digits. Now, while I can't guarantee double the pleasure, I can always assure there's going to be double the fun. As always, I'm joined by the two angles that complete this trifecta, the always acute Dakota.
Hola.
And the obtuse obstacle himself, Chris.
I've been thinning down.
I saw you last weekend. I don't know. I'm going with obtuse. So, what games did we play this week, guys? Dakota, what did we play?
We played a little bit of Overwatch. We played a little bit of Hearthstone. But I think the game that is most exciting to talk about, at least for a little bit here, is Fallout 4, of course.
Is it really, though?
Yeah, maybe exciting was the wrong word.
Fine.
Maybe exciting was the wrong word.
Relevant, right?
Yeah, relevant. The game is good. The game is... It's a good game. I cannot believe some of the scores I'm seeing with the game. It makes me want to talk about video game review scores in a big way. Maybe we'll have to do an episode on that soon.
Oh, yeah.
But man, that game has some serious flaws, and it's very fun in spite of them. It's just as buggy and clunky as any of the Bethesda American RPGs are. Your Skyrim, Fallout 3. It's nothing new. But if you like those games, it's exactly what you think it's going to be. There's no surprises, zero surprises to be found. And so if you like that kind of stuff, you're going to enjoy Fallout 4. What about you, Chris?
See, that's kind of disappointing, though.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we've gotten to this point where we're okay with a pile of bugs in a $60 game.
Yes. I mean, if you want to talk about it for a couple more minutes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I saw a review score the other day that was 9.5 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10 is the closest score you can give to a game to perfect without the game being perfect. And that is by no means what Fallout 4 is. Absolutely not. I got into a bunch of heated conversations with people saying but reviews are subjective. And while that might be true, that doesn't mean that you can just close your eyes to all the defects of a game and flaws in a game. It's got really good things, but it's got really bad things too. And so to me, this is my opinion, a review score or a review of a game should be a graceful integration or combination of objectivity and subjectivity. You can look at that game and objectively say the game is a buggy mess. And you can look at the game objectively and say the user interface design, while flavorful, is not user-friendly, which is the whole fucking point of a user interface. and this is coming kind of from my software design, minded brain. And so with those things in mind, even if you did enjoy the game as much as humanly possible, despite that, how can you say that that's still a 9.5? I don't know. It just seems intellectually dishonest to me, but that's me.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it as well. Is the review should be a percentage of it is objective or subjective rather. Like how you feel about the game, that's okay. Maybe half of it. That's 5 of the points. The other half should be the game's actual functionality, playability, number of bugs or lack thereof.
Yeah, totally.
And this game is I haven't even played it, and from what I've heard from multiple people, because my entire office at work plays it, and it's just a buggy mess. Some bugs don't even let you finish quest lines. Sometimes you go down a quest line, it's just got this, some terminal that some guy needs to hack, but then he's like, I can't hack it. And apparently there's a bug where no, just keep asking him. He'll eventually do it.
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's really stupid.
Yeah. And the sentiment that I've seen a lot online is, well, it's not as buggy as Fallout New Vegas. And it's okay, so if the positive thing about your game that you're spouting is it's not as buggy as that other buggy piece of shit, that ain't good. That's not good.
Yeah, forward progression is, I guess, something to be excited about.
Sure, but it's still in the negative column if we're talking about pros and cons.
Usually why I wait for the Game of the Year version of these games.
Yeah, because it'll probably be perfected. Just a really quick aside, hashtag Mitch was right.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean...
Anyways, Chris, what have you been playing this week? Let's not bash Fallout 4 too much.
I was very busy with school this week, so I haven't had a chance to play anything new. I wanted to try and finish Walking Dead, didn't get to it. So I played a little Vermintide with you guys. That was fun.
Yeah, that's right. We did do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I played Heroes of the Storm, my meta bet. I'll get into that later. And I played a lot of Hearthstone this week because I was on the move a lot. I was, in between classes, and because they're coming out with the League, they came out with the first wing of the League of Explorers, and so I've just been grinding gold to get up there. I made a fun shaman deck.
Sweet.
Because actually, this is kind of based on my other meta bet loss, where I had to do the make a deck out of 2 and 3 mana drop onlys.
Yeah.
And I made like a little totem deck, and this time I decided to up the ante, and I just made a giant totem deck with a bunch of big guys.
Nice.
Awesome.
Did
it work out really well?
It is right now. It works out really well against control warrior decks, the ones where they're trying to control the game, like kill all your minions and gain tempo advantage. It's working really well against control warriors. Other decks, not so much, but the main deck a lot of people are playing right now, it's doing really well against it.
Awesome.
Did you do the first wing, Chris?
Yeah, I beat the first wing. It was a lot of fun.
Chris, how fun was that? Like,
oh my
I
God.
loved the idea of the last boss just being an escape from the temple.
It wasn't even a boss.
So flavorful.
It was real. It was really.
I haven't bought it yet.
that's
I
my
gotta go
favorite
get
thing.
it.
It's very fun.
Really creative. I really enjoyed it.
What about
Yeah,
you,
Chris,
Mitch?
I actually have been playing a shitload of Hearthstone as well. Reno Jackson is the best thing in
my
the world,
God,
and I've just been putting him in every deck that I own.
He did some work in some tournaments, right? Some high-profile tournaments.
I don't know, because he just was released last week, so I haven't checked the recent tournaments, but I know every pro has been trying to make him like a thing. Like, I know Brian Kivler's been tirelessly building every possible deck he can think of.
He heals you to full.
He heals you to full health. If your entire deck has only one copy of each card in it, then he heals you to full health. So even if you have 2 ofs in your deck list, if they are out of your deck when you play him, you get healed to full.
It's awesome.
So it's pretty sweet.
It's game-breaking.
I've been playing that a lot. I also played. I've just been playing a bunch of Rocket League, man. I don't know what it is, but I am on a high for Rocket League and just fucking jetpack cars and soccer balls, man.
You've been doing singles, right?
I've been finally ranked in 1v1s, bronze 1 or whatever. Because see, the thing is, the games are actually a lot longer than normal games because the volleys don't last that long usually.
Oh.
So like your games are like really high score potential, and you end up like a game ends up like 6-5 or something. So there's a lot of like downtime, and the games are really, really long actually.
Wow.
Right on.
There's not a lot of like running around. Usually once somebody misses a block, it's like, okay, well that's a goal, and it's.
You gotta wait for the replay or
Yeah,
skip the replay, but the
it-
clock stops a lot.
It takes a long time, so I've been playing a lot of that.
I tried a little bit of that for a while, and I really enjoyed the way it makes you have to control the ball. I mean, it's different. Totally
Yeah,
different
it's a
kind of play
completely different gameplay because
Yeah.
normally you're trying to just like set something up for somebody else, and then that other guy comes in. You're trying to like make a play, but this it's just about like I don't know, like in the moment, like just trying to. I don't even know. You're just trying to. It's just ball control, really. It's just trying to control the ball. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
There's no plays. There's no nothing. It's just about ball control, and also like from what I'm noticing, almost like zone control, like knowing where you need to be. Like if you hit the ball this way, it's like, okay, if I'm going to hit the ball against this wall, it's going to go over there. I'm not going to be able to get to it in time, so I need to wrap around and counter hit his hit that he's going to hit. And it's a giant mind game. It's very, very difficult.
We play a lot of Rocket League, and I realized that we haven't actually played together since the Mutator playlist came out. We got to go do that.
I did play a little bit of the Mutator. It is absolutely incredible. I played the low gravity one with the giant ball. It's hilarious.
I can't wait.
Oh my God.
Like what I didn't realize about low gravity was you jetpack easier.
Oh yeah.
So people are just flying around, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I don't want to get a boner for Rocket League too much because then I'm just going to stop the podcast and start playing it. So let's actually just move on to our main topic. All right, today our main topic is going to be game business models. Now, what do we mean by that? We basically mean like their revenue model, how they make their money, how they have what you pay set up. So normally there's the 3 primary ways that they've been set up, at least like for the past 10 years or so, or 20 years or however long. We have the standalone model, which is basically just you buy the game, that's the game. You have the whole game, and maybe they'll come out with some DLC for it, but for the most part, that's the entire game.
It's like the traditional way we buy games, right?
Exactly.
It's the traditional way you buy things.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's kind of where you're going to see a lot of your console games fall into play, like an NBA 2K49. That's going to be a standalone game. You have it.
One of my
you
favorites.
bought the game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have this new version of revenue called free to play, which is basically the game is free to play, and there's a bunch of little microtransactions, either skins or new characters, new gear, any kind of stuff like that. That's kind of like the League of Legends model, the Dota model, that kind of thing. And then you have the tried and true, the trusty old subscription model. Now this, everybody knows this from the World of Warcraft model. This is how they've kind of made their money throughout like the past 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
You just pay a subscription every month, and it's actually kind of like you buy the game, and then you also subscribe to the game, and you pay like monthly fee, and they push out new content. That's kind of supposed to promote them to push out new content because, hey, it's like, why am I subscribing to this, So,
Yeah.
Chris, thoughts on these models? Let's talk about it here.
Well, I feel it was a great idea to bring this conversation in because of the recent kerfuffle with Overwatch.
It's a good
I
word.
think it's more than a kerfuffle.
But it appeared, and I mean, I can understand why a lot of people had this mindset where Overwatch was going to be a free-to-play model because it has a lot of the setup for it. It has a large list of characters that could seemingly be bought with in-game money or real money through microtransactions.
A roster.
Yeah, a roster, if you will. Yeah, a large amount of roster. It looked like you could keep paying these characters and they'd slowly develop more characters over time. It had a great model, but then they ended up deciding, you know what? We're going to sell this as a standalone type game for a set fee, $40 or $60 if you want the extra skins. And you could go that route if you want. So,
well, they also implied, they haven't actually explicitly stated it, but they've implied that there will be more characters, and you'll probably have to buy those through microtransactions.
That's what we said last time, and that's my understanding too, just based on the couple of interviews I've seen. But I did read another interview with Jeff Kaplan from Blizzard, who kind of was still talking out of the corner of his mouth, but he basically said that it's not going to be that way. Somebody said, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but in that one instance, he was saying, no, it's definitely not that. But he still couldn't say anything about it. So it's still a big question mark is what it is.
This standalone model, it's the way that all these games, like you said before, it's the way everything is set up, right? We expect to buy something that is complete, and that's it. In the game space, this has been changing over time where now we could implement DLC, the downloadable content, right? Everything's connected. Consoles are connected. Your PC's connected to the internet. So we have a great medium for these companies to be like, oh, you know what? We have this awesome game. We see it got a lot of positive feedback. You want to keep playing this? We're going to develop a little bit more, add a DLC on top of it. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. You'd buy a Zelda game, complete package, your whole game. If it had bugs in it, it had bugs in it, and that's what stood the test of time. Like, we remember the game as it was for all these years. I really enjoy this standalone model. If the old games were art in that you knew when you bought it, it went through rigorous testing because they couldn't touch it ever again. For us to have this kind of quality assurance testing for these kinds of games, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Well, it seems like they're getting lazier because they know they can just patch it.
Exactly. And I felt those older games were pieces of art because they weren't like the Fallouts, right? Where it's just a bunch of bugs and we expect the modders to do the work for us and you just download it over the internet to fix it.
It's funny. I definitely agree. I feel that if you have the capacity to update your software, then it doesn't mean you're going to maliciously or intentionally develop a game poorly or QA it poorly, right? But it's kind of like that, it sits in the back of your head. The developers know that they have the safety net of day one DLC to patch bugs, to fix issues. And with the always connected-ness of consoles and PC gaming in our current era, they know that it is not an issue forever if they release a game in some substandard state, right? Exactly. And I actually had the same concerns about Hearthstone because there was a little bit of talk about the way that Hearthstone Team 5 at Blizzard has chosen to balance the game. They've taken a pretty hands-off approach. They've said, we don't want to touch the cards. So if we're going to touch the cards, it's going to be very infrequently, as infrequently as we can possibly stand. And a lot of people are going, no, it's a digital card game. That allows you the freedom to patch every 2 weeks, every month, to continuously fine-tune the meta. And I am an absolute opponent of that idea. I think that
sounds terrible. That sounds awful.
Yeah, and you know why, Mitch? Because you play Magic, so you understand the kind of pedigree and care that needs to go into a card game to balance it in a way that makes an effective, successful play space. And I think that the people who want more frequent patches are kind of just in their games as a service, MMO mindset, where they say, oh, this needs to change when I feel like my class or whatever is a little underperforming. They want the heavy hand. It's almost like a government heavy, big government, small government. We're small government guys when it comes to gaming. This is
a multiplayer problem primarily, though, right?
Yeah, it really only happens in multiplayer. You're not going to see except for obviously Fallout, is a giant shit show.
There are definitely instances. Yeah, when I'm talking about balance, right? That's
I'm talking about balance.
Oh, you're talking about. I thought we were talking about the standalone thing. the shitty patching.
Yeah. So the single player equivalent is your day one DLC to fix your bugs, and yeah, you're right. But I think as far as standalone goes, back to our subject, I don't think that there's anything wrong with DLC on top of a standalone title, inherently speaking, as long as it's quality stuff. And we talked a bit about this in our first episode, but
yeah, I like and they could do DLC. I'm gonna go back to Splatoon again.
Jeez,
where they bring in, because it's a great Splatoon and The Witcher. They have a standalone game. Do you know how The Witcher? I recently read an article. I read it a couple weeks ago. I don't know where I read this, but The Witcher had in their budget the ability already to add this additional content free of charge. They recently came out with a DLC.
Yeah, they have a proper expansion DLC that did cost money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was actually an argument in itself, whether it should be called an expansion or a DLC. We can get into that a different time. But because they had such profit with this game, they used some of the profit that they made for the game to create that free DLC. And the DLC was just small things like little quality of life bug fixes, maybe adding a quest where in a sparse area. I'm not sure. I didn't play Witcher 3.
It's like cosmetic stuff. Yeah, a couple quests. They would have fixed the bugs regardless.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were doing this cool little weekly DLC thing.
And so I feel like that's an amazing way to do this standalone in the recent years, because a lot of people, gaming is much larger than it used to be. You're going to have these bigger audiences. If you do this quality game, people flock to it. If you put in your budget this extra little bit aside to do this update for free over time, people are going to keep playing it. People are going to stay with this standalone, so that when they decide, hey, you know what, we're actually going to make a DLC now, people are going to buy it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of customer loyalty that comes with that.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a DLC, even if there is some issues. Like if Fallout came out with a DLC, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as they fix the bugs first, obviously. If they left the game just a buggy giant mess and then just tried to pump DLC that they're trying to get you to buy, I think a lot of people would have a problem with that. We're like, wait a minute, can you help us out here, please? First,
the big no-no is you don't hold content back just so you can release it as DLC later. Obviously, that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, that's complete bullshit.
And there's that's absolutely happened. I can't remember what games, but there's been games where savvy, tech-minded people are able to inspect the data on the disc and realize that there's a bunch of stuff that is present on the disc that ain't in the fucking release.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there waiting to be unlocked, and that's a bunch of bullshit. But now it seems like companies are very quick to be like, we are going to do DLC, but we don't even know what it is yet, which is kind of like their way of saying it's definitely not on the disc already.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a ballsy move to just put it on the disc. Like, you got to know that some of us gamers, we know how to do things, and we'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find you.
We will find your transgressions.
That's interesting. This limiting way that they have to, make this DLC to keep the game, to keep people playing, to keep it relevant. Older games, such as World of Warcraft, for instance, you bought this as a standalone game, right?
Right.
But when you bought it, you couldn't do anything with it. You needed to subscribe. They had a subscription plan in place, and I feel like that was I think that was a symptom isn't the word I don't know what word I want to use. It was an aspect of the time, right? We didn't have as much interconnectedness as we do. We still had the internet, obviously. It was World of Warcraft, massively multiplayer online, but you couldn't. I don't think they had the idea in their head like how to make a good store for the microtransactions we see, to make these small DLC patches constant. So the way that we thought about it was in the same way that a lot of things worked at the time. Like, for instance, newspaper or magazines. You subscribed, so you'll constantly get new content updates. They're going to keep working on stuff. So I feel like the standalone model moved up to this subscription model as the internet evolved, but in a way that we put our mind, the way we framed our thoughts through the way that the world was outside of gaming.
That makes sense. It was the same with standalone, right? Standalone, I mean, you purchased software, gaming software, just like you would something else. But now, a little further down the line, you subscribe to gaming software just like you would subscribe to something else. And the idea of an in-game shop just didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't something that we had. I mean, WoW came out in 2004? Yeah, like, that wasn't a thing. It was a bit of a ballsy move, though. I mean, to expect gamers to spend $60 on a game and then also like $15 a month. That's a hefty price to pay for a game.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not like they weren't breaking new ground. They kind of just swept in and took all the EverQuest players and what else was out way back when? Dark Age of Camelot. There was a couple other MMOs. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, World of Warcraft, not the first MMO.
No, really.
What?
I know.
That can't be true.
Hang on to your britches.
I'm not even wearing britches, but I'll go find some to hang on to.
It wasn't that it was just it wasn't that it was the first subscription. It was that it was the first. I like to refer to WoW as the Beatles of MMOs, right? Not everybody likes them, and there may be their little, some of their ideas. I mean, they stood up to the test of time, but they aren't new anymore. There's new ideas, but at the time, you could not deny the impact it had on gaming as a whole.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Like they didn't create the MMO genre, but they definitely perfected a lot of it.
They perfected it, and they definitely brought it to the forefront of pop culture and gaming culture specifically.
But beyond that, like I was talking about just the subscription way, in that people started using this subscription model in a lot of MMOs. Then everybody wanted to be the Beatles. Everybody wanted to be WoW. So we saw a lot of games come out with subscription models.
And what's funny is, maybe you were going to say this, but that kind of was their downfall, because people are willing to shell out one subscription for a game, but probably not two concurrently, and most certainly not three, right?
That was the problem with all these quote-unquote WoW killers.
WoW killers, exactly.
We're going to subscribe to WoW. Like, that's stupid.
Just based on them... Yeah, exactly. Just based on them adhering to the subscription model, that made it so that they had to be better than WoW, which was like a Sisyphean task. Like, if they had a different business model, then that fact may not have been necessary for somebody to play their game. But it was, so it was.
Of that's kind of where we got the free-to-play model, and I think, that's kind of where it started to pop up, was certain games kind of realized we can't compete with the subscription, so fuck it, we'll go through microtransactions. I don't know, is that model outdated? And I liked how it was used mostly in MMO spaces, right? Like, the microtransactions started popping up in these, but because the MMO was constantly online, right? And it was constantly online and had a lot of people. So a lot of people that were able to subscribe to this were able to get all this content online all the time. So I guess you're right in that the microtransactions started working there, but I'm not sure if that's where we saw a lot of the first microtransactions, because people were already paying for something. No, I'm saying these other games that were
yeah.
fighting with WoW, they realized we can't fight with WoW's subscription. Like Dakota said, like that's you're going to be your downfall. And I think the first few companies tried to fight for it, and they failed.
Right?
The next few companies started going, let's try a different route. Let's try something else. And I think that's kind of where it may have not been the first like free to play game by any means, but that's kind of where we started to see it a lot happen in gaming.
So would you say this model is this outdated, or is it just
The subscription
change
model?
of times?
I think I don't know if it's outdated. I would say that it's kind of just not something you want. It's not a WoW exists, and until WoW doesn't exist, you're not gonna beat it. Like it's just not gonna happen.
Frame it with WoW in mind. WoW is one of, if I don't want to say only because extreme words are usually wrong, but it's one of the only subscription games left.
Yeah.
Right. And it's certainly the only one that's successful, at least in the zeitgeist, that I know off the top of my head.
I can't
it
think
depends.
of any other.
As far as I guess commercial, not even commercials, as far as like I guess popular success goes, WoW is the most successful. There are plenty of games, MMOs out there that are under the radar that still have subscription models. Actually, I'm going to bring up the Star Wars The Old Republic. It actually went free to play. We'll go into this a little bit later. Yeah, it went free to play. There is a subscription model still for it. It makes money. Not a lot of people play it, but even with the amount of people that play, they wouldn't continue it. They wouldn't continue having this subscription if it didn't make money. So they do make money, but nothing is going to be World of Warcraft. Like you said, people have this subscription model, so they're not going to go for another subscription game already, when they already have one.
Right. I think it also has a lot to do with things that actually are outside of gaming. We have a lot of other things that are not just bills, but you have other things come up now. Now you have things like Netflix, right? So a lot of people pay for Netflix, or a lot of people don't pay for Netflix, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do pay for Netflix, and so it's like, shit, I'm gonna subscribe to Netflix. And for myself, for example, it's like I subscribe to Netflix, I subscribe to Spotify, I subscribe to Loot Crate. It's like, I'm not going to also subscribe to WoW and some other game. I'm not going to do that. I want to be able to play these other games that I want to play kind of at my leisure and pay for them when I want to pay for them, not every month. And that's kind of why, when I got a PlayStation, I was like, do I want to pay for PlayStation Plus? How much am I really going to be paying for it? And I think that has that's another big reason why we're seeing a lot of these subscription models vanish.
Yeah.
There's just so many other things to subscribe for, even outside of the gaming community.
It's interesting that actually, just thinking about that leads me to this question. Are we going to start seeing things outside of the gaming space move away from subscription models and into more microtransaction-y stuff? I know there are some things that are microtransaction focused. I guess iTunes is microtransactions.
Well,
if you want to,
isn't technically the rest of the world, isn't that just kind of normal buying shit? I only want that, so I'll buy that.
I think maybe iTunes is a good example because you can either buy the album, which would be what we're calling standalone, or you can buy just a track for 99 cents.
Oh, I see.
That's your
so it'd be like buying an episode on Netflix.
I think
right. It is going that way where you can say, I don't want a whole service. I'm not paying for a movie to own. I'm also not paying for HBO to watch a whole year's worth of television, but I will buy the one movie rental online, or I will just buy one season of television online.
I don't agree in that it is the free-to-play model for gaming is like iTunes. Because for a song, for an album, you might not enjoy a song on an album, but that won't take away the entire album's experience. Yes, of course, the artist made it in a certain way to be listened to together, but it's not nearly the same vein as a game, in where you have an immersion sense, you have a storyline, right? Maybe you don't, but you have a lot of things going on in this game, and you see other people with it. You're not able to experience part of this game if you don't buy it. And that might be fair if you don't want to, I don't know, for instance, maybe you don't want to do a dungeon or something, but you lose out on things that other people around you are doing.
Well, see, that sounds like a shitty free-to-play model, in my opinion. Like, most free-to-play models, from what I've seen, you can experience the entire game, you just can't have some of the amenities. Like,
those are good free-to-play models.
Yeah, right. There are bad ones, like Chris, you mentioned
the bad ones are going to
right?
be the bad ones are going to be phased out. I mean, that's just kind of the way that games work.
No, they aren't, though, because they're still popping up, right?
Well, they're going to I mean, they're going to pop up. Like, the life cycles of these bad ones are not as long, obviously.
Well,
as, like,
Chris, you mentioned SPOTOR. Detail what SPOTOR's free-to-play model is.
The thing about Star Wars: The Old Republic,
microtransactions.
Exactly. They went from you bought it. It went to a subscription-based, right? You bought it, you subscribed to it. They kept coming out with this information. The game bombed, right? People didn't want to play another WoW for the same money. Whatever the reasons, it bombed. Mm-hmm. So they decided to phase over to the free-to-play model. Now, the Star Wars: The Old Republic free-to-play model is that you can play the entire game up until the max level cap. There are some limitations in what you can do. For instance, I'm not going to get into it, but there's certain quality of life problems in that game. Also, you don't level as fast, so maybe you have to do extra grinding out of there. Then, which make that's totally fine. But when you get to max level, you don't get access to the whole game. You have to either, if you subscribe, you get full access to everything and all the features of the game, or you could buy certain parts of the game piecemeal.
Oh,
you can buy a dungeon.
Terrible. What?
It does sound terrible,
awful.
But at the same time, you have access to an entire MMO without having that one. So if, for instance, you are a gamer who maybe doesn't play with a lot of people, and you like a story, you're like, okay, I really want to play this game, so you play it, you enjoy it, you're like, oh wow, this dungeon and whatever the huts place.
Yeah, it might work for that game in particular because they made the main quest line so much like the old Knights of the Old Republic games, and so it does kind of function as a half-decent single-player RPG if you just hit those main quest lines and play by yourself. Would it work in a game that didn't have that?
You could not.
Maybe
you
not.
could not sell that for WoW at all. Like, oh, you can level up, but you can't do anything else. Like, that sounds miserable.
Like, SPOTOR's got all the VO on all the missions, which is really annoying on the side missions, but for the main quest line, it's fucking cool.
Oh, the main quest line was like one of the main selling points of that game. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about in the MMO space. But there's plenty of these other free-to-play games where I feel like the microtransactions do work, and it's fine. In these certain, like I said, I don't like the idea of comparing it to the iTunes, because in an MMO space, you're losing out on a lot of story, a lot of gameplay, a lot of immersion. I love the way that it's used in. Oh, go ahead.
Well, music just doesn't have gameplay and immersion. That's why that analogy
I know,
is not
exactly.
one-to-one.
That's what I was saying.
But broad strokes, the analogy, it is apt because they're calling games now the free-to-play with microtransactions. They're calling those games as a service because they're relating it to services like Spotify or Netflix or iTunes or other platform services like that. Games as a service is probably going to be the new hot buzzword, and I mean, we'll kind of get into what we think is coming, but there's definitely something to be said about a comparison between these entities.
A game as a service would, in my mind, would be more subscription based than free to play.
That word, that's just not how they're using the term. That it might also cover subscription, but I can think of one game in particular by Sony called Killstrain that's currently in beta, and it's going to be free to play, but it's MOBA-esque. It's kind of battleground heroes, the whole 9 yards, and you'll get if the game is free to play, but additional heroes and stuff are going to be offered as microtransactions, and they're calling that their entry into games as a service.
Interesting, very interesting. Let's talk about other genres of free-to-play games with us. I don't want to talk just about like MMOs, because obviously we all know a lot of these MMOs that are free-to-play, like WildStar and whatnot. But let's talk about some of the other genres we see in the free-to-play, area. You have games, obviously, like the big ones, like League and Dota. Like those are huge free-to-play games,
MOBA's
very,
big and
very
free-to-play.
Profitable. You get the whole game for free. You can download League right now. You can go to LeagueOfLegends.com and download it, and you can play the game. And they give you a rotation of heroes, and if you want to buy more heroes, you can actually purchase them with in-game money. You can literally play that entire game for years and spend $0. And that is beautiful.
That's one of the free-to-play models I do really like, because that's a thing where you can access everything for the most part, besides the skins, which are just for fun, right?
Yeah, that's
you could
purely
access
cosmetic.
Yeah, you could access everything, and if you buy it in piecemeal, it doesn't affect your experience. You're just buying a hero, so you don't have to spend time, in-game time, to do it. And I really, that's, to me, is what makes a good free-to-play game, in that you have time versus money, right? That is the purest form of currency exchange, right? How much you spend time like doing work to get certain money, depending on how valued the work is. And the same thing for this game.
I think it's a little bad. I mean, specifically with League of Legends, I think that their heroes are a little too pricey, in my opinion. For the masses, like obviously
you said League.
Yeah, and
Heroes
League.
of the Storm is even
Heroes
worse.
of the
Heroes of the
is
Storm is even
worse.
worse. Don't even get me started. Like Heroes of the Storm is obviously way worse. But what, you play a game of League and you get like a win of the day bonus for like 100 IP, but every other game gives you what, 20, and the newest champion coming out is like 6,300. That's insane. And so
That's a lot of games.
for the guys that play every single day, all day, and play like 20 games a day, yeah, sure, that's nothing. But for like, the average Joe League player or the average Joe Heroes player, that's a shitload. You're not going to ever play these new heroes. You're going to buy like one hero every 2 weeks, that's absurd.
Way more than that.
Yeah, probably even longer than that.
Way longer.
And that's insane. So that's something that I don't agree with in that model. I think if you're going to have something like that, but I think that's kind of to incentivize you spending money to buy the hero. So kind of slimy, but I mean, they got to make their money somehow. So I guess I can't really be mad at it too much.
There's a lot of this. This leads the way into one of the other things. These free-to-play games use a lot of like psychological methods to coerce us into spending our money.
Well, they make things look really pretty, and I just want to have them.
Well, that's number one. But, I mean, I'm going to go into another massive free-to-play game. One that millions of people play. And it's super intense. Candy Crush.
Oh my god, that game.
My fiance plays the shit out of Candy Crush.
If my sister ever listens to this episode, I hate you for making me play that game. You're a terrible person.
Here's the thing. Candy Crush, I feel, is a great game. Like I haven't really played a lot of it actually at all. But I know the way it works in that it's a simple match 3, right? But I like how that they changed the way the map looks. So I feel it had a lot more it got more popular than its predecessor Bejeweled, which was the more popular match 3.
Very boring.
But because Bejeweled was just like, hey, get more points every time or something. But here they change up the objective, right? They like change up the map style.
It's got levels.
It has levels, so it keeps you interested. It keeps you going, oh, I wonder what's going on in the next one, and keeps you pushing. And it must be well designed because a lot of times it's very difficult, right? To get that extra, or sometimes I think you have to move one particular candy down to the bottom of the map or something. It has to be well designed for you to be able to, like, for it to be difficult. And I feel it uses that in a way that's super slimy, where it's, if you lose, you could pay to get a couple extra more turns, right? So it's just difficult enough to where you're going, oh man, if only I had a couple turns, I could have made it. And it's like, oh, hey.
Yeah, it's got the typical mobile game free-to-play model where it's free, but your actions are usually limited. The number of things you can do, the number of squares you can move, the number of attempts you can make, whatever it might be, is limited, but you can always pay to remove the limit. And actually, I mean, Chris, it's kind of like what you said, where you're translating time into money, but they're artificially limiting the amount of time you can spend in order to artificially increase the chance that you spend money on it.
That's the worst thing. I wasn't talking about particularly the turn in particular, because that could be, you could say that for I don't know, maybe, I don't know what other kind of, game I could think of, but the turn is something that, is puzzle based, right? Like maybe if you thought of it better, you could have moved a couple extra spaces. But I'm talking about the stamina bar.
That's what I meant by that.
The stamina is the worst slimy thing that I hate in free-to-play games, where it's just an artificial amount of time that you're allowed to play before it cuts you off and says, hey, you can't play anymore unless you pay us more money. That is useless.
I think it extends really well to how you're going to play mobile games. Like people aren't going to, except for the exception of Hearthstone, people aren't really going to be playing the game for a long period of time. So it kind of extends to like, oh, well, you had like fucking 5 minutes to kill. All right, well, here, you have enough time to play for 5 minutes. Like that. I don't think it's really that slimy. I think it makes sense.
Right. For me, that's how I feel. The stamina bar or whatever it might be, or energy or what have you, is always just for me a reminder to put my fucking phone away and to go do something else.
Like, oh shit, I've been playing this game for 10 turns. I'm going to put this down.
You know what it is, Chris? It's mobile gaming social Darwinism. Only the fucking dumbest people are going to spit money at Candy Crush in order to take 500 more turns today. So fuck them. They can pay more money.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that perfectly. You know what I really want to talk about, though? If we're talking about free-to-play games, there's one that I'm very interested in because it used to be a standalone game and is now a free-to-play game. Let's talk about TF2. Like, that game has been through a lot of stuff.
It's so funny. Go ahead.
No, it's just like you bought it and you just had the whole game. You had all the characters. You had all the guns that you could have, which everybody only had like 1 or 2 at the beginning. And then they slowly introduced. Let's talk about this one actually, because this is a very specific type of, I guess, microtransaction. They introduced these things called crates, and you would randomly get a crate that would drop. And it would be like a numbered crate, and the numbered crates would have like specific things you could get out of those crates. And you had to buy a key to open it to get whatever random item was in it. To me, I hate that model. I think that's the stupidest model that there is.
Go ahead.
I'm okay with it, Mitch, because there's nothing that says you have to open the loot crate, and the loot crate was given to you. With no effort on your own. They're literally random drops. So it's basically reminding you that you can pay the money if you want.
I guess that's true. And they also do, like, you can get a crate or you can get a random item. So I guess it's still kind of fine.
I don't agree with that logic there, Dakota, because it's not like the gods of gaming put it down. Valve developed these crates so that you pay money to open them.
Right.
I do agree in that out of it, this borders on, it walks the perfect fine line between slimy, like, pay money for a random chance at a skin that you, or like a little gun that you don't ever get, maybe a skin like one of those hats that you might not even need, that's just, I don't know, like a little paper doll clothing box. But
TF2 is the hat game.
It was the hat game. But I really like it in the fact that you can trade these items with other players. So it goes back again to this time versus money thing. If you want, you can start buying these crates to get these items, but if you're a sly trader and you have the time to where you could keep talking with different people, working out trades for some item you might have found randomly to try and get up to that item you want, you can do it. And that's why I'm okay with this.
You can also craft too in the game too.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You can take apart other items and craft with them.
You could craft and get a random item that you can trade up until you get to this item. And that's similar to the way Valve's other game Counter-Strike works.
Yeah, they do the same thing as well. But TF2 you can actually craft the specific item you want, which is pretty cool.
Most of the items have specific recipes, and then there's also ways that you can just kind of combine junk into the next tier of junk.
That's a new thing I didn't know about. Wow.
and it's really fascinating. Valve and all of this stuff. I mean, there are people that just buy and sell fucking hats on TF2, and it got to such a level of kind of legitimacy that I think Valve has an economist on their payroll. They have an economist that models stuff. I don't even know what the hell they do, but they have an economist in-house because buying and selling TF2 hats is such a real thing.
Yeah, it's insane that that's an actual thing. I can't even imagine what that day must be like for that person.
And what that month, like, what goals do
I don't even know. I want to see that guy's, like,
I don't know, man. But
short-term, long-term goal spreadsheet.
I saw somebody was talking about how Dota 2 has the most open, free-to-play model as far as at least the MOBAs are concerned, where they give you the full roster of heroes for free, and the only thing that costs money are cosmetics. And it still has that TF2ism where you can randomly just get free items. Just for playing the game, you will sometimes get items.
Yep.
And somebody said, Yeah, and they're able to do that because they're fucking wizards and they just get to make money. Whatever they do, they make money. And it really is mind-boggling.
Well, that's the thing. They have two pedigrees. They have Valve, which has yet to really disappoint in terms of gaming. And then they have Dota, which is a cult.
Yeah, I think
and
if it
MOBA.
wasn't Dota, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. But because it's Dota and it's just, it's Dota, that they can do it. People will play Dota. Dota's, been around forever. We talked about it in our last episode. It's been around forever. It's the haymaker, they can do it.
So we see, we've been talking a lot about MOBAs in these free-to-play. We've talked a little bit about mobile in this free-to-play space. What other kind of games can we see in free-to-play?
In the free-to-play space? You have Hearthstone. It's a card game, mobile card game.
That works well.
Yeah,
I definitely like that.
I love the Hearthstone card game, their model, that you can play the entire game. I love that you can even play the expansions, the DLC or whatever you would call them, the different adventures. You can buy those with in-game money. You can literally play this entire game with in-game money. That's incredible. You can craft the cards with different cards. It has every possible thing you could want out of a game in its business model.
I feel like I played the entire game without, I didn't buy any of the adventures.
I
didn't buy any of the adventures.
Are you really surprised? Fucking
but
thrift shop Chris over here. I don't think he saved up a bunch of gold.
I spent $20 on card packs, right? But when I bought them, the new card packs weren't even out yet, so I just got a bunch of doubles. So I pretty much played the entire game on free to play money.
The guys I play games with are just $50 here, $50 here, $50 here. Every time a new set or expansion.
Well, that's how Aaron is. He does that a lot, but it is what it is. Our friend Aaron does it all the time. I can't do it. I will buy the adventures solely because I appreciate what they're doing and I love the game so much, but I never spend money on card packs.
That's mostly why I bought, like I said, I'm thrifty, but I at least I will support the game, but I will not spend $20 every month on something.
Yeah, that's insane.
I will spend a set amount on Hearthstone. I put $20 down. I figured Hearthstone would cost me $20.
Speaking of things that you won't do, Chris, I heard this cute little buzzword, fee to play or fee to pay. What the hell is fee to
Chris,
pay?
Tell us about that, Chris. Isn't that your favorite thing in the world?
I hate fee to pay. That's a term coined by Jim Sterling. He's a games journalist. Basically, it's the trending gaming
Radio in no way endorses Jim Sterling or any company he creates.
I like the guy.
I
like him. I like him a lot. But basically, a lot of games now are coming out. They're bastardizing all of gaming by mixing the model of the standalone traditional model with free to play, and this is awful. Games such as Evolve, for instance. My favorite. It's the most recent example, one that everybody's familiar with because of how bad it messed up. It sold a game, a standalone, cost you $60. You got a bunch of maps. You got 3 monsters and 12 hunters, right? The developers said that they built it as a platform to sell more DLC, right?
It sounds like a service, a gaming service.
It sounds like a service, but
you got to drop $60.
You got to drop
$60. He wants
exactly.
To coin it.
Gaming as a service.
So fancy,
you heard it here first. Big Cultures, gaming as a service. I don't. It's awful because the whole thing about it, what I said about free to play, you have to sacrifice time or money to get what you want. And I don't mind being bombarded in a free to play game with, ads for hey, buy some more gold so you could get this stuff, or hey, wouldn't it be easier if you had this hero? I don't want to see that in a game I already bought. I don't want to be bombarded with this message that, hey, you should keep buying stuff on this thing you already bought. I bought it. I shouldn't have to pay more unless I want something that's drastically different. I don't want to pay for this to buy more of the same thing on a regular basis that's needed to enjoy the game.
But I think that's your old man frugal mentality. I think a lot of the newer age of gamers don't mind that. I think
being poor and spending their money wastefully?
Think about it in the terms of WoW, right? Okay, you paid $60 for a game and now you have to pay $15 a month for the same game. And then when the expansion comes out, you have to pay another $60 for another game. That's the same game.
That was
with
a
more
$30.
content.
They're usually cheaper, but the point remains the same.
But the point remains the same. Yeah, like it's the same type of model that WoW, a game that you have played for years.
It's much different in that the material.
Why
the way
is it different?
I'm telling you right now why it's different.
Well,
because in
telling
Evolve, no, I'm going to tell you. So you goddamn listen to me,
Chris. 1 sec before you. Can you tell us why, please?
let me tell you why. God damn.
I'm hoping he's forgotten his point by now.
Almost. So in Evolve, it's a piecemeal model for more of these individual characters, right? You have to pay like $7 for another character. That changes the way in this multiplayer space. In World of Warcraft, when you pay your subscription, you know that maybe you don't get anything new this particular month. But next month, you're going to get a whole new dungeon. You're going to get a whole new, maybe PvP. You know they're constantly working on things and pumping out new content and fixing it.
Do you think that it's kind of like a matter of content per dollar?
It is content per dollar, but more than that, yeah. Because if you take these one character class that you have to buy for like $10, there was the DLC that they released, there was the Hunter Pack. It gave them with 4 hunters and a monster. It was $40 if you wanted to buy it.
No, are you shitting me?
No,
$40?
Let's not use Evolve as like the poster child for fee to pay. Like we all know they were absolutely
That is
terrible.
The poster child for fee to pay. We could go into other models,
let's think about it like this. Let's say we didn't hear this tidbit that Dakota gave us earlier today about how maybe that's not how Overwatch is going to be. Let's say we think that that's how Overwatch is going to be. That you pay $40 for this game, you get 21 heroes and however many maps come in the game, and then later on they're going to give you, I don't know, maybe they're going to introduce heroes, they're going to trickle them out, or maybe they'll even just like introduce packs of heroes and you have to buy them. Like, what is wrong with that? They're giving you an upfront cost that's a lot lower than than a normal game. $40 is relatively cheap. Most games are $60 now to recoup their initial costs in case the game flops, or just in general to recoup the initial design costs of the game and the promotional costs of the game. And then when they introduce new stuff that they didn't work on for that $40, they're going to charge you for that too. I don't see anything wrong with that.
I agree with it as long as it's a normal amount. Like I said, for Overwatch, it has 7 damn maps out right now and 21 characters. Like 7 maps? 7 maps? That's it for a first-person shooter? That's a paltry amount. If they release a lot of maps over time for free, then maybe down the line they release a bunch of heroes. I will buy them. If it's long enough and they give you enough stuff, you can't just say, oh, well, they're working on it. Well, they're building these fee-to-pay games to where it's a very bare-bones basic game, and then you have to keep paying for this additional content. Like, I'm going to go to Evolve real quick. It had a couple maps.
Hold
right?
on. So we got Evolve, but you say these games. Surely you or Jim Sterling have more examples than Evolve.
Yeah, like Evolve is one that
Space.
You're like selling us on a point that we already know. Like, yeah, Evolve sucks. We get it. Their fee-to-pay model sucked. Okay, we get it.
It's a fair point, but I mean, are there other examples?
Dead Space 3 was that single-player game. You were able to buy resources for the game at $1 or $3. That is the most basic microtransaction version in a single-player game. It's not even like you're getting more content. They made certain things harder to get, longer to create, like longer to take to craft, in a game you already bought for no reason other than to coax you into spending money.
Okay, so if we can agree that Overwatch might be okay depending on the amount of content and the price they charge, and we can also agree that things like WoW, who have a subscription model, are perfectly acceptable, but things like Evolve and Dead Space 3 are not, then it doesn't sound like there's any inherent flaw with fee-to-pay, but we have to think about these on a case-by-case basis, and really what we're saying is not acceptable is slimy, underhanded shit. Which isn't really saying anything profound.
I don't like a single-player game with a marketplace, right? I don't want a marketplace. I can understand if it's a single-player game and they come out with a pack of downloadable content. That's different than selling you $60 of a first-person shooter or any kind of game, and then having a marketplace where you could buy little things over and over, maybe buy skins, like the Metal Gear Solid. you were able to buy, I think every game they gave you a tuxedo snake suit, right? In this one was the only Metal Gear, the latest Metal Gear 5 was the only one where you had to purchase it as a DLC, through a microtransaction in a single player game that's offered that every other version.
So I guess what I'm hearing, and I think what we can all agree on, is it's really not the model. It's the game. Yeah, it's the game. If your game is good enough and your content is priced well enough, who cares how you're doing it, as long as it's not shit. And I think that's, something that every gamer we already adhere to. If your game sucks, we're not going to play it. We're not going to spend money on it. But if your game is good, like a game like Dota or League, or TF2 or WoW or all these other games, if it's good and it's, free to play, subscription based, standalone, Diablo even, that game had made a crap load of money, we're going to pay for it. It's just we're paying for good content.
That's why this term fee to pay is there instead of free to play, or it's not a standalone with DLC. It's because it's a standalone game made like the model of free to play, to where they're trying to nickel and dime you out of already buying it.
I don't think they're trying to nickel and dime you. I think that's your perception. Not? They're giving you the game.
They're not giving me. They made me buy it.
$40 game. They're saying, here's your game. Here it is. You can play that whole game by itself. And now we're going to introduce new stuff. If you don't want it, you paid your $40. You keep playing. But if you do want it, here's some other stuff. Whether it be new heroes, new maps, new skins, new guns, new whatever. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't, you don't have to. There's nothing wrong with that. It gives everybody options. It gives the frugal guy like you the option to just sit there and keep playing. I don't want to buy that new shit. I'm going to play my old shit. And then it gives the newer guys with a shitload of money, all of Dakota's friends that spend money on Hearthstone. Oh, new shit came out? I want it all. Give it all to me right now. It gives everybody options.
I think that it's only acceptable if they didn't intend for you. See, this is what Chris is saying by nickel and dime. Left 4 Dead did this too, or excuse me, not Left 4 Dead. The Last of Us, their online multiplayer had a really cool online multiplayer. It was kind of unique. There was crafting involved, and you kind of had the traditional Call of Duty where you unlock guns and perks as you level up. But then they also had some guns that were only available if you paid money. And I think that kind of shit is unacceptable, where it's they've gated content. Overwatch and the maybe expansion pack of heroes that they might release feels different to me just because it wasn't intended to be that way from the get-go. Whereas in the case of The Last of Us or Evolve, where they publicly announced that they intended to provide a service where you can later purchase more stuff, is intended from the get-go to just be an opportunity for them to charge you twice. Right, Chris?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I don't know. Do we have a confirmation that it was not intended to be an upfront standalone cost, or did we all just think that's what was happening?
What are you talking about?
For Overwatch.
That what?
You said it wasn't intended for it to be this way.
We don't know anything.
No, we don't. It's a big question mark.
But the way that they say a lot of the stuff, they're not. They seem. You want to know what the main reason why it irks me is that they seem uncomfortable telling us how much it costs and telling how much. They don't straight out, flat out say, this is what it's going to be. These are what the things are going to be down the road. This is what it is. Deal with it. Suck our D. You know what I mean? It's that. Right now, you pay the money and you get all of the stuff we have out with it. What that tells me, though, is it's good guy Blizzard. They're not gonna. I hope, and I'm saying this speculatively, but they're not gonna screw us over. So I think what that actually tells me, based on what I've known for Blizzard for fucking years and years and years now.
No. Hold on. Think of Heroes. Their business models are not good guy.
What's wrong with Heroes? What's wrong with that?
We said the
Heroes costs in Heroes of the Storm are some of the highest than any MOBA out there.
Yeah, but that's
dollar-wise.
In my opinion, that's them not knowing how the fuck to do a MOBA. To be completely honest,
that doesn't forgive them.
I think it does. Doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Like I said before,
Let me bring it.
Blizzard doesn't listen.
Argument.
I don't owe. Let me finish. I don't owe anything to Blizzard. I love what they do. They do great things. But if they're going to come out with a game, it's got to goddamn impress me to spend my money on.
And Overwatch doesn't impress you?
It does. I love it. But what they have, the current amount of material in the game does not impress me. I love all Blizzard stuff. Those models are beautiful. The art looks gorgeous. Everything looks great. But I'm not going to spend $40 for them to say, here's 8 maps with 21 heroes. Have a blast until 6 months down the road when we release a bunch more stuff that you have to pay for on top of the game you already just bought 6 months ago.
I personally think your expectations are way too high, man.
Hold on. If you knew that, like, say you somehow knew, you were omniscient, that there was going to be no more content, would you pay $40 for what we have?
I still wouldn't pay $40 for what we have because I know I'd get bored with it.
Then I'm down with your feelings because at least it's consistent. But
yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think the bottom line is and what we can say about all these models, what we say about everything is, if the game is good enough, if the content's good enough, if it's all there, we'll pay for it. If it's not, we won't. And that's, I mean, it's kind of been seen. You know, we kind of torched Evolve as a community, and we'll do it again if Overwatch sucks. Like, I guarantee you, if that game is terrible, people will stop playing it and they will bash it. And hopefully, Blizzard will learn from the lessons.
I'm hoping they go the way of Splatoon, in that they add
damn,
on...
we can't go like 15 minutes without going...
Man.
Jesus.
I only mentioned it twice.
Yeah, but it's either Splatoon or Evolve, and we can't go 15 minutes without you mentioning one of the two.
Because they're two of the best. They're what we have to put all the other standards of these games to. Because Splatoon offered that game. If Overwatch does what Splatoon did, if Overwatch offers this game with these couple maps and all these heroes, and then decides, okay, we made a shit load of money on this. Let's keep offering maps and things. And after a year, they're like, okay, you know what? We're gonna add a bunch of more heroes in a like $10 pack. I'd buy it. But they have to have a set amount that they're going to give you with that purchase for it to be worth it.
Yeah, well, Chris,
and that's what I want for a game. I don't want a game where I have to pay for a game, a fee to pay.
No, we get what fee to pay is, because we get it. I understand.
I'm going to call it a pay to play.
Okay, well,
pay to play
in a year,
just
Chris,
a game.
when Overwatch is amazing and they release that $10 pack, we'll talk. We'll have a discussion about it. Let's get on to the meta bet, because I'm really, really excited, and I want to see how this ended up.
All right, last week on the meta bet, who lost? Was it Chris again?
Chris,
yeah.
I made Chris play nothing but Stitches.
Oh, that's right. How'd it go, Chris?
Well, since I didn't play too many games this week, I only played Heroes. It went all right.
Our pattern remains the same. What ends up happening is we just don't play video games.
He was saying he didn't play too many other games.
Yeah, I didn't play too many other games. So, because I didn't want to get involved in anything, because I knew I didn't have a lot of time this week.
Oh,
so I played a lot of Stitches.
Oh, good. Okay.
Chris, let's talk, because Stitches is my favorite hero.
I
don't
wish the listeners can see this at home, but I want you guys to, after this podcast, open up Heroes of the Storm and look at my played list, because it's going to be humorous.
Oh, man.
But I played Stitches, and it was all right. I don't really like melee characters. He's exactly what I thought he was, kind of boring. I enjoyed the hook where you could pull players to you, because I primarily play a lot of casters, so I'm pretty good at skill shots. And so once I got used to the speed of it and stuff, I was just pulling people and left and right, and we started.
It's so
blowing
good.
them up.
It's a lot of fun. It's got to be one of the most fun abilities in MOBAs.
You change, anybody with a pull, you change the fight instantly.
You change the course of the game immediately. You can just completely change a 5v5 to a 5v4 within a second. Because you're hooking one of their enemy teammates into you and your 5 teammates, or you and your 2 towers that are sitting right there, pelting him now.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And what I like about Heroes, which is actually something that you don't see in any other MOBA, is you can do certain things where you can hook them behind your turrets and your wall. There's not any other MOBA where you have an actual wall that they can't walk through.
You can't pull them because they can't walk through.
You can't pull them through it, but you can pull them. There's certain areas where you can pull them around it, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And now they're stuck behind it and they can't get out.
You basically got to toss the hook just above the wall, where there's some brush or some forest that you can't pass through. Yeah.
I was sometimes using that ultimate where you eat somebody. So I hook them when I'm next to a tower, and then I just mosey on to the other side of the tower and barf them out, and then they're stuck there.
Chris, Stitches used to have sprint as one of his talents.
I remember that.
And you could eat somebody and then activate sprint and just haul ass back to your base.
That was hilarious.
Was the best thing ever. and then they removed it.
You guys
because
are
it
getting
was
me
too
all
good.
excited about Heroes. We got to go play some Cho'Gall.
What
after
level
this,
are you, Dakota?
24.
Jeez, it's a slow crawl. It's such a
I have
slow crawl.
Cho'Gall, so suck my dick.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
hey,
true.
I'll win some games with you. Play Cho'Gall.
Let's
with
do
me.
it.
All right, so last
Dakota,
week
what did we bet on?
we bet on
Please.
Star Wars
Oh,
Battlefront for
I actually
the
played some of this game this weekend.
PlayStation
It was
4.
really,
Did you?
it was
How'd you
really
like
fun.
it?
It's
Yeah.
a lot more fun than I thought it was.
Okay.
The graphics on the I played on Xbox One because my roommate has it. The graphics are meh. They're not
Really?
anything exciting.
Oh, they were so
on the
gorgeous
computer.
on the PC.
On the PC, they're fucking gorgeous, and I'm sure maybe on the PlayStation 4 they'll probably be gorgeous. But on the Xbox One, I was really not impressed. But the gameplay was actually very interesting. It doesn't have a reload, so I just kept pushing X, and it was not doing anything. It's kind of more of that.
It's a heat, right?
Yeah, it's a heat thing. So you just keep shooting, and then like eventually you'll overheat, and then you have to push X at a certain time.
Yeah,
and
like
it'll
when
kinda
you
let out the heat.
Yeah, when you overheat, it's kind of got the typical, you have to let the heat meter go back down. But if you overheat completely, you'll have to go into a very long reload animation. But if you get a nice little quick event timing button press correct, then it reloads fast, right?
Yeah, it's really weird and
pretty cool.
a very interesting game. The space flight is amazing. Actually, that's something that's very well designed, in my opinion. And you have a skin that you can unlock at level 50 that is a Shadow Trooper, so you are all black, and that is gorgeous.
That's
Looks
pretty
great.
sweet. So to recap the scores or the votes or whatever you want to call them, I scored the game at 85.
Oh, that's right. You and I were like neck and neck, right?
We were. I'm middleman, so I'm safe. I'm at 85. Chris is down at 75. Mitch, you estimated 86.
God,
80
I
or
put
lower,
you right
baby.
in the manwich.
I am in the manwich. So the score, based on 16 reviews of
please.
Star Wars Battlefront, is 77.
Oh, boom, shakalaka!
Making Chris the winner and Mitch the loser.
No. Oh God.
Yes.
Why?
You were mean to me today, so I'm going to be mean to you all week.
Oh God.
Tell me what you're playing.
Oh man. Do I have to?
Yeah, 100%.
Let's just end the podcast right here. All right, guys. Thanks.
Nope.
God damn it. Let me look at my library. I've been playing. So the games I play most of the time are Hearthstone, Counter-Strike, Heroes, because Cho'Gall came out. So Heroes. I play Rocket League like fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah. That's actually, yeah, Rocket League.
No, don't do Rocket
Yeah,
League.
okay.
Don't do it.
Okay,
Make him just
I
have
thought
a
of a
pink,
good one.
pink
No.
pony car.
here it is. Okay. So, the defense, what is that called? The defense zone? The goal zone? You know, the square?
Yeah.
You can't drive in it.
You can't do that.
Yeah, you can't. You could only be on offense. You can't be defense. You can't drive in the square.
But I play 1v1s. I need
Don't
to
care.
go there.
Well, you got to make sure you control the ball. Can't play in the square.
Can you, is he allowed to boost over it? So he's flying over it?
You know what? You could fly. Yes, you could aerial over it. You cannot
I like
touch
that.
the
I
square.
can't drive on it.
So
Now,
every
what-
one of your blocks, Mitch, has to be this wicked area.
You guys have been pushing me to do aerials. This is throwing me in the deep end right here. Let me ask you something. What happens? Obviously, this is probably assumed, but what happens if I get like nudged and pushed into there? Can I
mean, then
drive out?
Get out. It's like the lava game when you're a kid. You can't touch the lava.
So I have to like fly out, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you could drive out, but you got to fly out.
God, I should have just.
Yeah, you made it worse. You got to fly out.
Oh my god.
Obviously, unless I have no boost, then I can drive out.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I
that's
actually
gonna
have to
be,
just sit there and hope somebody shoves me out.
That's going to be devastating, I think. I can't wait to hear about
God,
it.
I was gonna say let's play some Rocket League after this, but now I don't wanna.
I guess not. It's going to be Heroes time.
I want to.
Well, that's right. No, we do have to spread the virus. That's right. We have
we
to
gotta
work
spread
to
the
do,
virus.
guys. We got to spread the STD. So
Yeah, so this week we're going to be voting on a Wii U game. I think it may be the first Wii U game that we vote
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Mario Tennis Ultra Smash.
sounds exciting.
I
I love Mario Tennis games. Like I played the
pretty
Mario
fun.
Tennis game for the Game Boy all the time.
Mario sports games in general have always been huge for me. When I was a wee lad, like 4 or 5 years old, I would play
a wee lad.
Yeah.
a wee lad. I would play Mario Golf with my mom, and when I was in college, Mario Strikers, the soccer game.
That game was
my God.
amazing.
Shit.
That game
was
is
so
super
awesome.
good.
Chris, we know that game.
Oh my God, that game.
Yeah, that game is rad. Anyway, Mario Tennis, Ultra Smash for the Wii U. I have my number written down. What do you guys got?
Oh, shit. For the Wii U, Wii Sports is really good.
I got my number.
All right, I have my number.
All right, Chris?
I'm going to 83.
83 and Mitch?
I can feel myself not in the money position right now.
What do you got?
I went with tried and true 82.
No!
Yes! Yes!
What happened?
Mitch is in the money position.
Yes!
Damn it.
I had 72.
Oh my God, you're way down.
It
I'm
feels
way
good to
down.
be the king. It feels real good.
Yeah, I went pretty low with this one. I don't know why. I don't think...
You talked it up. You were like, my mom and me and bonding and strikers in college. And I was like, this motherfucker put like a 90. I
Yeah.
am boned.
Yeah, I think it's just the Wii U. The Wii U just turns me off, and so I don't know.
Well,
We'll
it's no
see.
PS4.
It's not. Take us home, Mitch.
Well, yep, we talked about, these different game models. We broke them all down. Chris got really irate and talked about Evolve and Splatoon way too much.
Yep.
But ultimately, yeah, I think we had a good show. If you haven't gone to Bit Cultures yet, definitely go check it out. Got all sorts of articles about new games, old games. Dakota posts a bunch of really cool articles up there, so definitely check those out. We have a bunch of different video series. We have a whole nother podcast. They go over our top 10, so definitely check them out. It's called Bitcast. Very awesome. If you want to get in contact with us, we have an email address, analogstickradio@gmail.com. If you want to see either myself or Dakota playing some games, we both have Twitch streams. We'll put those links in the show notes. And yeah, if you ever feel like interacting with us and you don't feel like going through that whole rigmarole, just post some comments on the YouTube. We'll talk to you. We'll answer them. We'll discuss them. Chris will, probably critique them a lot more than the rest of us, but yeah, we'll have a good time. And you guys have anything else you want to say before we go?
I got nothing, man.
Initiative has 4 eyes in it.
And on that incredible note, we will see you guys next Thursday. Take care.
Bye-bye.